This is the contractor and visitor site induction presentation for the Longreach Mill and Export Terminal. The Longreach Mill and Export Terminal, located in the Tamar Valley, is operated by Foraco Proprietary Limited. Foraco owns and operates an integrated business for the production of various wood-based products grown from their own plantation estates, which are predominantly located across the north of Tasmania. The Longreach site is Foraco's main integrated processing and export terminal and represents Foraco's final production step, which began in their own seedling nursery over a decade before the harvested wood is delivered to this facility. The Longreach facility accepts wood in log or chip form from external sources and exports the majority of its produce in the form of bulk wood chips of various specifications to international customers. This presentation will provide you with information that you will need to know in order to safely and efficiently provide on-site services to Foraco at our Longreach facility. So let's get on with it. In order to work alone on the site, you must have successfully completed this induction process. You'll be provided a contractor induction assessment form that you must complete competently before being granted unescorted access privileges. Of course, if you require assistance with reading or other skills in order to complete the assessment, please let your site contact know before undertaking the assessment. If you pass the competency assessment, you'll be provided with an Access ID card that you'll be required to produce at the weighbridge daily when accessing the site. Passing this induction does not automatically allow you to escort others who have not been inducted. Foraco have a suite of policy documents that you must be aware of. The policies provide high-level direction as to how Foraco manage environmental matters and occupational health and safety, including drugs and alcohol, in the workplace. Copies of these policies will be provided to you as part of a package to support this induction process. On arriving at site, you must contact your site representative before commencing any work. Contractors are required to sign in and out daily at the weighbridge, the main entrance, so you can ask the weighbridge staff to contact an appropriate person if you are unsure. While within the mill site and outside your vehicle, you must wear PPE. The minimum requirements for the site are helmet, high-vis vest or shirt with day-night reflective strips, steel cap boots, and eye protection. Gloves and hearing protection may also be required or advisable, depending on your task. Contractors are expected to provide their own PPE. While on site, it is important that you are continually aware of your own surroundings and the hazards that may present. Common hazards around the site include process equipment that may start without notification, loose items can become entangled in moving equipment, and items could fall from above as well as the risk of falling yourself. Large mobile plant operates across the site, and some locations are classified as confined spaces. High voltage equipment and transmission lines are also common across the site. Loud process areas, hazardous materials including asbestos, dangerous goods and sharp equipment will also be encountered on the site. Before you undertake any task on a Foraco site, you must first participate in a risk assessment process and, if warranted, obtain a permit to work document from your site representative. If the risk assessment determines that the task is complex or above a medium risk profile, further risk management processes may be necessary. Nevertheless, risk assessment is the first step. The risk assessment form records the basic details of the task to be undertaken, the safety and other risks, as well as the control measures that you will be required to implement in order to do the task without harm to people or the environment. The reverse side of the risk assessment document is the permit to work. A common requirement of this permit is that an isolation or lockout process may be necessary. An isolation is used to control a sudden release of energy that would otherwise pose a safety or other risk. Examples include pneumatic, hydraulic, kinetic or thermal energy. An isolation and lockout is designed to protect you and others. It must be undertaken in consultation with your site representative and be overseen by an authorised site isolation officer. You must only attach or detach your own personal lock to any isolation. Removal of another person's lock or the master isolation officer's lock will not be tolerated. Before commencing any work under a permit, you will be required to sign the document in order to acknowledge you understand your accountabilities. All people undertaking a given task covered by a permit to work are required to sign on to the permit. At the end of the task, you are also expected to sign off the permit, acknowledging completion. Consistent with Foraco's overall risk management system, further risk management protocols are also applied on site. Examples include the Job Hazard Analysis, or JHA, and a series of supplementary specific risk protocols to address confined spaces, working at height, and hot work. A JHA is required where a significant level of risk or complexity is apparent on a particular task and may be developed by a team of people with appropriate expertise to more closely examine and manage risks associated with these complex tasks. The permits work as their names suggest. If, for example, your task requires welding, grinding or gas cutting, then a hot work permit will be required, and this will be identified when obtaining the permit to work. If entry is required into a confined space, then a confined space permit will be required. Similarly, if you're working at height, then a working at height permit will also be required. Again, if these types of supplementary permits are required, this will be identified on the permit to work, and you'll be expected to implement all the risk management protocols that are identified on all of the permits. If you observe a hazard or are involved in an incident that has any safety, health or environmental implications while on a Foraco site, it is a mandatory requirement that you report the issue to your Foraco site representative. This includes near misses, damage to equipment or inappropriate behaviour. If equipment is operational and an emergency stop is ever required, drives are fitted with local isolators and stop buttons, and conveyors are fitted with a lanyard tripwire for this purpose. A summary of emergency procedures can be found posted in work areas around the site. You will also find an emergency plan map in your induction package showing firefighting infrastructure and 2 emergency assembly areas. If you need to report an emergency situation, weighbridge staff should be your first point of contact. If a fire breaks out, your first response should be to report the fire by raising an alarm. A secondary response, if it is safe to do so, is to combat the fire with the available infrastructure until the site fire crew attends, and thereafter follow directions from the fire crew. If it is necessary to evacuate the site, an evacuation alarm will be triggered from the weighbridge, which sounds like this. If you hear the evacuation alarm, move promptly and with caution to your then closest emergency assembly area and await further instructions there. If it is necessary to contact the site's management team directly, telephone numbers are shown here and also printed on the emergency map. The layout of the site is shown in the map included in your induction package. You will see from the map that the overall site is comprised of 2 separate chipping plants, each with its own wharf infrastructure identified as the North Mill and the South Mill. The map also clearly identifies which areas of the combined sites are classified as restricted and non-restricted. Access protocols for the restricted areas will be detailed later. For the moment, it is important that you understand that while the Southern Mill site is fully operational, the Northern Mill site is essentially a non-operational area, utilised mostly as a storage and laydown area, is not manned, and therefore almost entirely a restricted area. All the major restricted areas which have specific access protocols are identified on the site plan included with your induction package. Chip stockpiles, elevated walkways and high voltage transformer rooms should only be accessed with specific approval via your site representative. Similarly, the wharf area also has access restrictions while a vessel is moored alongside. Registered confined spaces across the site are identified by signage. The log yard is also a restricted area. The detwitching area, which is seamlessly connected to the log yard immediately inside the weighbridge area, is a restricted area too, but these adjacent areas have differing access protocols. A detwitching station where log truck drivers remove the chains and twitches or straps that are used to secure their log load is located alongside the main administration block. General contractors are not permitted to enter the log yard area where the large log unloader vehicle operates at all, unless they are escorted by site personnel. However, General contractors can transit the de-twitching area in their vehicles under certain circumstances, although pedestrians are asked to always go around its perimeter. If this de-twitching area is vacant and no log truck unloading is underway, then you may simply put on your hazard lights or a beacon if fitted and transit directly through. If the de-twitching area and log truck unloading area is active, you must wait at the de-twitching area perimeter with your hazard lights on until the log load has been lifted off and is well clear of its truck, and there is no loaded but de-twitched trucks waiting in the yard. Alternately, if you have a UHF radio, you may contact the driver of the large log unloader vehicle on channel 26 and ask for permission to transit the area as the trucks cycle through their queue. If you are given permission to transit through the active yard, you are never permitted to pass a truck while its load is actually being lifted off, or pass close to a log truck after its log load has been de-twitched. There are standards of behaviour that are expected to be observed by all people on Foraco operational sites. Harassment, discrimination, victimisation or vilification will not be tolerated, nor will theft or unauthorised removal of materials from the site. A security search of vehicles on site may be carried out at any time. In accordance with Foraco's drug and alcohol policy, we require that no intoxicating liquor or other illicit drugs are to be consumed on the site, nor should you be under the influence of alcohol or other illicit drugs. Please also be aware that some medications can negatively affect your ability to work safely and protect the health of others. If you are unsure about whether a medication you are currently or were recently taking could be a safety issue, please raise the issue with the site supervisor or manager before commencing any task. Other standards of behaviour include: smoking is only permitted in the main car park where there is a secure disposal point and prohibited at all other locations on site. Fire hoses are not to be used for washdowns. Do not bring pets onto the site. Wastes are to be disposed of only in identified waste bins and skips. If you bring a chemical or a hazardous material to the site, please declare them at the gate in order that an appropriate risk assessment can be made. The speed limit on the main access road is 60 km an hour, reducing first to 40 km an hour and then to 20 km an hour on approach to the weighbridge and main car park. The speed limit within the mill site compound is 20 km an hour. Contamination. Contamination of the wood production process is a serious matter for Foraco and our customers. Contaminants can cause significant damage to processing equipment and process materials and potentially cause very large financial losses to Foraco or Foraco's customers. A contaminant is any material other than a wood chip which may become mixed in with or becomes attached to the pure wood chip products. Potential contaminants can be man-made or natural. They could be plastics, rubber, metal, oil and other lubricants or fuels, wood other than a wood chip pole base materials, rocks or charcoal. All personnel must make every effort to prevent contamination of production equipment and the chip piles. Vehicles should be cleaned of rubbish like plastic cups, food packaging, rags, etc. before entering the mill site. Offcuts and packaging from maintenance activities must be cleaned up and removed from the job work site as you work and be completely secured before any sign-off. Contamination will not be tolerated. Foraco's industrial sites are managed to minimise environmental risks and impacts. Common environmental issues include the potential for oil spills and the subsequent disposal of any oily contaminated materials, the appropriate disposal of wastes including recyclables like scrap metals or in some cases potentially hazardous waste such as transformer oils, spillage of product, particularly off-site during the loading of export vessels, and noise. It is important to note that noise from Foraco's industrial sites are regulated under the Environmental Management and Pollution Control Act. If your work generates significant noise, then it is important for you to understand that these regulations place progressively lower noise limits for day, evening and night times when measured at nearby sensitive locations, such as residential properties. In summary, when working at a Foraco site, all environmental risks associated with a task are to be assessed and managed under the permit to work process in the same way that safety issues are managed. What is chain of custody? For forest product industries, chain of custody traces the path taken by products from the forest to the consumer, including each stage of harvesting, haulage, processing, transformation, manufacturing and distribution, particularly where progress to the next stage of the supply chain involves a change of ownership. Chain of custody certification of Foraco's business systems is designed to provide a credible guarantee to our customers, whether that is a downstream customer business or the final end consumer, that products which are sold with Foraco's chain of custody certificates are in fact originating from well-managed certified forests. As a consequence, Foraco has strict requirements that allow the company to trace each and every load of logs or chips that are delivered to Foraco's processing sites. These requirements will be clearly communicated to you if your business activity is directly involved in Foraco's internal production chain. If this is the case, then strict compliance to all chain of custody requirements will be mandatory if your organisation wishes to provide ongoing services to Foraco. General amenities on the site include toilets, washing and crib rooms are located in the main administration block. First aid, report to the weighbridge. All Foraco staff are trained in basic first aid if required. UHF radio, set to channel 26, is used for general communications on site. As UHF is a public band, users are expected to avoid profane language while using the UHF. The final topic for this presentation relates to traffic management on the access road. This area of the access road is the final approach to the weighbridge and gate office. Please be aware that log trucks entering the site will cross from their left to their right-hand side of the road in this section of the access road. This is necessary to allow them a straight-on approach to the weighbridge weigh-in platform. We ask all users of the access road to recognise that log truck drivers will need to undertake this manoeuvre and to provide them with the courtesy of a wide safety margin. Thank you. This completes the Foraco site induction presentation. Please complete and sign the induction assessment form and present it to your site representative. After the assessment form has been reviewed, you will be notified by Foraco whether you have been successful in being granted contractor access privileges to the site.